Poor people who have dated rich people. What did you learn? How was the contrast? 1. I grew up very blue-collar poor. The men I knew fixed cars, re-roofed their own houses, knew plumbing and electrical stuff, etc. My husband grew up very wealthy. His family had a massive house, a pool, a vacation home in Spain, and maids. Honestly, the contrast was stark. The first thing he did after we moved in together was put liquid dish soap in the dishwasher. He didn't know anything. He didn't know the vacuum needed to be emptied. It could have been a deal breaker, but he fully embraced his ignorance and learned. It was a whole new world, and he loved it. One of my favorite memories is of putting up our first Christmas tree. He'd never been part of that and got so much joy from it. 2. She was a full-time professional fine artist, oil painter. Dad was a pioneer in green energy, the whole family is rich as a result. She was able to focus on school, earn her MFA, travel the world on residencies, etc. She was wonderful and goes to show you that when you have a well-adjusted upbringing, support, and the money to provide resources, you can be who you were born to be. Absolutely could not relate to the socioeconomic struggles of the people she dated, though. 3. I never knew. She worked a normal job, lived in a normal apartment. It wasn't until someone told me after we broke up that I found out her family was minted. 4. Had a girlfriend in high school. We dated until sophomore year of college. What baffled me wasn't her disregard for the cost of things but the fact that she couldn't understand why I couldn't just pick up and take her out for nice dinners or buy her $400 Louis Vuitton sneakers she wanted for Christmas, especially since she was willing to buy me $250 Jordans. I declined. She was such a sweet girl but had no concept of other people coming from poor families. No idea how I had no money despite being 16, 17, and not having a job. When I got my first minimum wage job at 18, I spent pretty much everything I had on her for several years. She also took me out and bought me nice gifts, but she never had a job. 5. The family was an entity in itself and had rules. Relationships are everything. The family itself is a thing, the club, the parties, the vacations, the homes, the cars, the business, it's all about the family. It's not a bad thing, it's just different. I was raised to be independent and get out of my parents' house. They stick together like glue. Everyone has a role to play, but they have security and they belong. I never belonged anywhere. I was raised by people who had kids because that's what you were supposed to do, and then I got out of their house when I turned 18, and that was that. 6. I wouldn't say I was poor, more average. But the two wealthy women I dated were both quite spoiled. They expected to get their way, and what was interesting for me was that they both expected their money to open doors and solve problems rather than using courtesy or charm. My ex-best friend was the same. What was very noticeable for her especially was the smallest thing was a crisis. People who have never dealt with true pain or loss because they've always been shielded from it are upset by small things. 7. When I was 26, I was making around $20,000 as a server. I dated a 32-year-old corporate attorney who was making $300,000. I think the biggest thing it showed me is that I was capable of more in my life. For a long time, I thought I was just going to be a server because that's all I could do. She showed me to want more and to strive for more. I'll always be thankful to her for that because she changed the trajectory of my life. I went back to school and have a different career now. She pushed me to want something different, and it's something I didn't know was possible until I met her. 8. I grew up middle class and sometimes really struggled depending on my dad's job status. My wife grew up quite wealthy, think maids, nanny, vacations all over the world, private school. Our biggest hurdle during the first couple years of dating was lifestyle issues. Just seeing how much she'd spend without even worrying about the price or budgeting, not thinking twice about a purchase or when grocery shopping. It was the small things I was more amazed at and found tacky more than anything. If you asked her, she would say I have far more financial literacy than her. She's a hard worker and works long hours but still has that safety net. We are happily married.